What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, and today I am bringing you the anti-meta Plunder Patrol profile. What makes this card anti-meta? Well, it's the brand new card they got in the form of Yugioh. This is the kind of card that a lot of people were waiting for, was the Earth attribute for the Plunder Patrols, and you actually make this a lot quicker, a lot easier, and a lot more consistently than you do with the Plunder Patrol Captain. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. If you want to see some more combos or test hands with this particular deck, then make sure you hit that like button, get it way above 50 likes in the first 24 hours, and I will bring that for you. I'll also show you a very basic combo at the end of the video to show you how you can kind of lock your opponent down a little bit and play it around from there. So with all of that out of the way, let's dive head first into the profile. To start off with probably the most important card of the deck, and that is Triple Whitebeard alongside Triple Golden Hair. I still really rate this card, considering the fact that it's like a one card starter for everything you need. Obviously, if you add other cards to it, it is a great option. And I have chosen to go away from the Bystials because, again, the format is a little bit undefined at the moment. We don't know how consistent they're going to be. And naturally, a deck like Plunder Patrols, when it's all waters, don't really have many targets it can banish apart from the ones from their extra deck once they hit the graveyard in order to successfully summon them and unlock more level 10 synchro plays. However, if the format does become more Bystial heavy or can afford to use Bystials, you can cut the adventure package that I'll show you and then you go for some more level 10 synchros, and I'll also show you the options for those at the end. Triple Bluebeard alongside Triple Blackeye. When is this card going to get its foil upgrade? Like all of the others, including Redbeard, are all ultras now, except this guy. This guy could have very easily been in Ghost from the past, but, you know, obviously, this deck's really fun. It was something that was lacking because it does rely on your opponent quite a lot, and the new ship Yugioh allows you to give your opponent a token and then declare an attribute. So it gives them exactly what you want them to have in order to unlock your other plays from the extra deck. The last monsters for the main deck is Triple Ash Blossom. Now the reason I've gone back to Ash for this format is because I feel that Brandy is going to be quite highly represented alongside, of course, Kashtira's. There are a couple of very good cards you can hit with an Ash Blossom on that as well. It really comes down to how you want to play this deck. I've got a bit of a balance here where I've got like a small portion of hand traps, a small portion of board breakers, and then a couple of stun cards as well alongside the rest of the deck. The best thing about this deck is it does have a lot of space where you can adapt it and change it however you want to see fit. If you want to be playing so many more hand traps, you can do. If you want to play more board breakers and you want to make this a blind go second deck, you can do quite easily. And it allows you to kind of build up off the back of that as well. So that's it for the monster lineup before we hit into the adventure package. Speaking of the adventure package, the reason that this is so good for this deck and the reason that you max out pretty much on it apart from Illegal Night is the fact that you have the ability to discard your Plunder Patrol monsters, and then by discarding your Plunder Patrol monsters you will then be able to start triggering some of their effects as well. And then on top of that, none of your monsters really need to use their normal summon. Like, they don't have a normal summon effect. It's not like normal summon this monster do something, and that's where it kind of becomes an issue. So a lot of the Plunder Patrols already have the same effect where they can trigger an effect. So if this card is sent to the graveyard from your hand or monster zone, you can activate the effect. Now, obviously, it's going to be a little bit more difficult against the cash matchup, which is why we do play a couple of main deck outs to the cash matchup so that it doesn't become Shifter, auto-lose, or Kashtira, Rise Heart, auto-lose kind of thing. So obviously that's it for the adventure package. Moving on to the generic spells, or the spells for the deck in general. We are, of course, playing Triple Plunder Patrol Shipyard alongside the single Terraforming. So the Shipyard, of course, is basically an activated searcher. It also boosts all of your Plunder Patrol monsters, which is really important to deal with fat stack boss monsters. It can also be good if you do face something like a skill drain, because obviously this is a spell, it still boosts all your stuff. You also get the ability to discard a Plunder card to add a Plunder Patrol card from your... discard a card in general to add a Plunder Patrol card from your deck to the hand. So that's really good with the Adventure Engine because you can discard the Enchantress, get the search off of that, and then you banish the Enchantress, so you maximise your value off of that engine. It also has a very nice effect that if it's in the graveyard, you get to target a Plunder Patrol card in your spell and trap zone. And then you get to set this card and return the card to the hand. So it's a nice way of, like, if you've got one of your Plunder Patrol monsters like Whitebeard or Redbeard or anything like that equipped to one of your ships, you can target that monster, bounce it back to the hand, bring this back to the hand, activate this, search out another Plunder Patrol monster, and you're good to normal summon them and start linking off, syncing off, doing whatever you need to. I've gone with 2 Desires over Pot of Prosperity because, again, the extra is actually really tight. And a lot of people, like someone was saying to me the other day, they said, oh, Pot of Desires is terrible, it's a really bad card because of the cash matchup. Alright, so what? Like, yeah, I get it. You activate desires, and then because you activate desires, your Shangri-La can then trigger to banish, to block a zone. Like, they're going to be doing that anyway. But if I activate desires, banish 10, and my opponent's Shangri-La locks one of my zones, and I've still got one zone to play with, I still activate Book of Eclipse, and all my zones are unlocked again anyway. So, desires is definitely the better card for me. And on top of that as well, if you wanted to, and these are the one of the level 10 synchros that I'd advise, is if you play Sovereign, like, you don't care. Like, literally, the only way in this particular deck to make Sovereign is I go Special Summon out Griffin and then Normal Summon Ash Blossom. Now, if I want to make this more consistent, I can change it up a little bit. But what makes this card so good is if I activate Desires and then I can make this, and my opponent has been using Shifter and Shangri-La and everything like this. This guy's a absolute beast of a monster. And then you just go, okay, cool, one punch, and you could probably OTK with it. It's that insane. Speaking of which, I am main decking 2 Book of Eclipse and 2 Triple Tactics. So Book of Eclipse, the main is of course to deal with that Kashtira matchup. But on top of that as well, a card like this is actually really, really good. And a funny little tech that you might want to consider, depending on how you want to do it, is in theory, if your opponent Book of Eclipse is your monster and you've got Nibiru, you can Nibiru their entire board and it doesn't tribute your stuff because it only tributes face-up cards. It's also another one where you can activate Book of Eclipse really early. Like if they Dark Ruler you or something and you go Book of Eclipse, flip it all face down, and then Nibiru them after you go into your side deck, like you keep all of your cards and they lose everything. It's great. And then of course for the last cards we are playing Triple Infinite Impermanence, just an additional hand trap. And I have main deck the Rivalry. It is a 42 card deck, so if you wanted to, you can cut these out completely and then bump like Eclipse up or Talents up. But the reason Rivalry is kind of cool is you give your opponent a token off the Jord, which is something you want to do as consistently as you possibly can. And that monster is a Fiend. So then as soon as you flip Rivalry, not only can they not special summon with Cash because they already control a monster, but you flip them Rivalry, the only thing they can do is tribute set. So they have to tribute your token to set a monster, and then you're able to pick that board apart after the fact anyway. Obviously, it's very specific because you have to go first in order to get the most value out of this. That being said, again, with the Cash matchup, it's very rare that they can actually deal with the back row. Now, yes, they are playing a lot of Psychics. So you don't really want to flip a Rivalry while they've already got something. But again, it's a nice little combo with Book of Eclipse and Rivalry. And what I mean by that is, if you've already got Rivalry set, because they don't have a lot of back row outs. If you already have Rivalry set, and then what you do here is you activate Book of Eclipse, and then book all their monsters and then give them a token that's face up, then Rivalry can lock them into that token because then they can't flip their monsters face up. Or, alternatively, you can give them a token and then Book of Eclipse them, because tokens can't go face down, so the token will still stay face up, and then you flip Rivalry. Now, obviously, the idea is that this will flip them during the end phase. You do have to be very, very specific with this. And it's maybe why you might want to consider Book of Lunar Eclipse instead of Book of Eclipse. Entirely up to you. That would probably be a better option for this deck. But it's just kind of like a nice little way of playing around this. Now, obviously, you don't want to like Eclipse your opponent without being able to get them under the correct Rivalry lock. But that's just why it comes out, and it's really, really kind of cool, and it's a nice little out. I suppose with so many people playing Book of Eclipse, then Lunar Eclipse might be the better option, thinking about it more in depth. But you still need to be playing a main deck out that can still play under Shifter, can still stop a Kashtira deck, no matter what phase they're in. And then you want to make sure you're not giving them as much advantage as possible. The other thing with this as well is if you Book of Eclipse this, and let's say they put a Link monster on board that can't be flipped face down, you still flip the Rivalry, it locks them into that, and they can't flip their monsters back up. So I'm not too sure how it will interact with Book of Eclipse. Whether Book of Eclipse during the end phase, if Rivalry is face up, will force them to flip face up, and then they have to get sent, or how it would resolve that way. But yeah, like I said, I think Lunar Eclipse might be better the more and more I think about it. But it's just an option for you guys to consider and think about. Rivalry is also, of course, down to personal preference. You don't want to play it, like I said, this is easy. 3 more board breakers, so Lava Golems if you want to go down that route. It could be Lightning Storms if you want to go blind seconds, Evenlies, anything like that. Moving on to the extra deck, the only Plunder Patrol monster we are playing 3 of is Blackbeard, purely because this is the easiest one to get into, because it doesn't require a tune or anything else like that. However, the most consistent one you'll probably get into second to this will, of course, be Jord. Now, obviously, the first one you would be going into Blackbeard because it was the easiest one to get into. It didn't require your opponent to have an attribute or anything like that. Whereas now, going to the Jord is the exact same combo you would go into Blackbeard with as well. So arguably, you could cut the Blackbeard down to 2. It really comes down to personal preference. Like, there's not a huge amount of flex spots because by the time you're using all of the different Plunder ships at 2, by the time you've kind of cut, even if you put Blackbeard to 2, you're still taking up like 10 of your cards. So you've only got 5 spaces left to play around with. And the final 5 spaces I went with was Shark, Toad, Almirage, because obviously it's part of the combo to get you into Blackbeard, and the one Dragite. Now, again, the other options you can do if you want to play around with this is your Yugioh. You've also then got the ability to go into a Groza, a Baron, and then one that I highly advise you playing if you do go for level 10 synchros is the Ice Jade. And the reason this is so good is it's such a really powerful combo or a counter to Cash Tearers. So massive shout out to Rob who discovered this card, or like when he found the card, worked it into Sword Soul. But it has a quick effect. You get to activate this effect. Face-up monsters you control cannot be destroyed or banished by your opponent's card effects. So it stops them being able to Fenrir, just get rid of you. On top of that, if this was activated in response to your opponent's effect, and your opponent still has that card on the field, you get to banish it. So again, that's really cool, because they could activate planet, you can chain this, and then this will banish that planet, meaning that the planet won't resolve, which is really kind of cool. If a card is banished by your opponent's card effect, while this card is in the graveyard, except during damage state, you get to special summon it. So again, if they banish your stuff with cash, it just kind of floats back. So yeah, it's a very nice counter to cash, which is kind of cool. But this is the extra deck that I've got at the moment. And Jord is just so good for the deck. It's just an absolute beast of a card that we've gladly now got. Again, the only downside is it now needs to get a secret upgrade in the future so it'll match the rest. But, you know, here or there. So its monster effect is level 8 synchro. If your opponent special summons a monster or monsters except during damage state, you get to add a Plunder Patrol card from your deck to the hand. Then if this card is equipped with a Plunder Patrol card, you get to special summon a Plunder Patrol monster from your deck. You can target one Plunder Patrol card in your graveyard, add it to your hand, and if you do, you place this card into the Pendulum Zone. Now, the reason you want to place this card in the Pendulum Zone is its pendulum effect is you get to declare one attribute. Return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon a Plunder Patrol token, Fiend level 4, attack and defense 0/0, with that attribute you declared to both players' fields in defense. You can only use each effect once per turn. So the idea would be this lets you get your own token. If you've got Golden Hair in the graveyard, you can loop her back. She's your tuner, so she can go straight into a Bronze if you want to, but it also gives you the ability to go Blackbeard. You can then use Blackbeard, and because the token is the attribute that you declare, whether it be dark, fire, or light, you can then tag out into a Lice or, of course, a Moak, and then, of course, you'll get the draw off the Blackbeard. So you've kind of recovered part of your combo. You've locked your opponent under a token, which in a cash matchup is incredibly powerful because they can't special summon their cash monsters for free, and it's very tricky for them to normal summon a monster because, again, it needs 2 tributes to do so. So the only way they can get past that is if they've already got a birth in order to kind of play a little bit further. That's where Rivalry will then come in because you flip Rivalry, they're locked into Fiends, and then they can't play. Now, obviously, that can be said for any deck because you give them a Fiend token, unless you're playing against something like Darkworld Dangers. Locking them into Fiends is incredibly powerful and pretty much game ending. So that's pretty much it for the profile. I'm now going to take you through some very basic combos for the deck so you can kind of see how it operates and what your ideal end board or your ideal plays are. So, back in a sec. Okay, so I'm going to show you the very basic 2-card combo. I'm using Rivalries as just filler spots for your entire hand because these 3 cards don't really matter. Just kind of show you what your opening hand could possibly be like. So, as long as you've got these 2 cards, you're in Golden Land. So you're going to activate Golden Hair's effect, you're going to ditch the Whitebeard. You're going to trigger Whitebeard's effect, which will allow you to special summon Bluebeard from the deck. You've got a tuner and a non-tuner, so you're going to sync these guys, whereas usually you would go into Blackbeard, you're actually going to go into Jord. You're then going to use Jord's effect, you're going to target the Whitebeard in the graveyard, you're going to add it back to the hand. You could have activated the Bluebeard effect if you want to, but in this example, all we would be doing is swapping a Rivalry for another random card, and ultimately I don't need to show you that, it's not going to affect how we end our board. I want to show you what you've got if you've got the base minimum. So then what you want to do here is you want to use Jord's effect to resolve, which will put it into the scale. You'll then use Jord's scale effect, which will put it back into the extra deck to give your opponent a token and yourself a token. At this point, it's up to you whether you want to go for a Moak or whether you want to go for, ideally, a Lice, which is exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to clear the tokens to be Lights, and this will then give us the ability to use Golden Hair's Graveyard effect to discard any card you want. Ideally, if you wanted to hold onto the Whitebeard, it guarantees you've got a Plunder Patrol for the next turn when you're activating effects, but ideally you can just ditch the Whitebeard. It's a shame that Whitebeard is a hard once per turn, but that is just the way the cookie crumbles, I'm afraid. In this one here, what you want to do is you want to use the token plus the Golden Hair, and you're going to go into your Blackbeard. Blackbeard will then be able to do its Razzle Dazzle and put itself into the Spell and Trap Zone while summoning out a monster your opponent controls with the same attribute, and obviously because our opponent controls Light, we can go into Lice. This will, of course, allow you to draw one random card, which would replace your effect of the discard card if you wanted to keep the Whitebeard in hand. We've done all of this without a normal summon, so if you do have another extender like Black Eyes or anything like that, then of course you can make another synchro or you can make another play to the board as well. Entirely up to you. So that's the very basic combo, and then all you really do is you add, like, if you add Rite of Armoricia to this board or anything else like that, it's another way of pitching cards, and it will get you the same end board plus the Griffin and the token. Entirely up to you on how you want to adapt it, but this is just a very basic play of being able to kind of get 2 Plunder Patrols to the board, 1 tuner, 1 non-tuner, and then being able to sync into the new Jord, and then push your plays further forward from there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. If you do have any questions at all, or you want to see some more test stands or plays for this deck, then please make sure you smash that like button. Getting above 50 likes in the first 24 hours will show you appreciation for this type of video and make you guys want to see more. With all of that out of the way, as absolutely always, guys, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.